Welcome in, everyone, to another YouTube episode covering Dynasty Fantasy Football. If you like what I'm doing here, make sure to like, comment, and most importantly, subscribe to the channel. With that said, we've got Dynasty buys. I'm going to jump into my first one. Nico Collins. So I know that Stefon Diggs was traded to Houston recently, and I've heard a lot of takes. Some people say Nico Collins will be the wide receiver one. Some people say Tank Dell. Some people say Stefon Diggs. For me, I heard on a few podcasts that people think that Diggs will take away from Collins the most. Don't agree with that. I don't know where they're getting that from. I disagree. Collins played as the Texans' clear wide receiver one in 2023 as their receiver. You can see that. Just 15 games, 80 catches, 1,297 yards, 5.3 catches, and 86.5 yards a game. Whether Dell was in, whoever was in, when Collins was in, he was the wide receiver. That's not going to change. Stefon Diggs is closer in size to Tank Dell than he is to Nico Collins. So Collins will remain the chief outside wide receiver. Now, Tank Dell rotated between the slot and the Z position a lot last year. Diggs can do the same. So they'll rotate. We'll see how their roles are used. But Collins is the one that has the role. He was the one who produced the most last year. I will have Collins as the redraft wide receiver one in this offense. Him and Dell, very similar in age. They're both 25. Collins is a few months older. But he dropped a lot on keep, trade, cut. Went down quite a few spots, down to wide receiver 17 in Dynasty. I have him wide receiver 15. Now, let's get into something interesting. So all offseason, I thought that Collins and Dell were a little bit of a sell candidate, actually, both of them. Because we saw that the Texans were interested in adding Mike Evans. And here they go. They add Stefon Diggs. They wanted to add another significant wide receiver to this offense while CJ Stroud is on his rookie contract. That makes perfect sense. A great move for them. But now, people are overreacting. Yes, Stefon Diggs is still a great player. Is he in decline? Yes. Was he bad down the stretch of last season? Yes. Do I think because Stefon Diggs is there that Nico Collins cannot be a wide receiver one? No. Am I going to rank him as a wide receiver one? No, but I'm still going to rank him in the mid wide receiver two range for redraft, maybe even a little higher. So here's your opportunity. Now, the first trade I wanted to point out, if you can get Collins for Tank Dell, I still prefer Collins. I hear some people preferring Dell. So I would take Collins there. A couple other ones. If you can trade a late first for Nico Collins, I would absolutely do that. And then the last one, I'm not a big fan of Travis Etienne. And if you can use this opportunity to get out from under Travis Etienne, a running back who's older than Nico Collins, I would absolutely do that. Go to the safe wide receiver tied to the solid quarterback. Next up, my next buy, Jaxon Smith-Njigba. I feel like I've talked about this a lot. People are too down on JSN after his rookie year. I think everyone is acting like he had the same rookie year as Quentin Johnston. It's not true at all. He had 63 catches, 628 yards, 4 touchdowns, and 93 targets. So he got some targets and caught 63 of them, which isn't bad. The problem is what he did on the targets because he was used in too short of a role. Now, Tyler Lockett returned to the Seahawks for 2024. That scared people off. But Lockett turns 32 in September. If he's going to stop JSN from breaking out in year 2, okay, fine. Then maybe JSN wasn't going to break out anyway. We can't forget why we love JSN coming into the NFL. In 2021 in college, 95 catches, 1,606 yards, and 9 touchdowns. Outproduced Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave in the same offense that year at Ohio State. Somehow Marvin Harrison Jr. was also on that roster. Might have been the best college wide receiver crew of all time. So right now on KTC, JSN is rated as wide receiver 22. I think that's a little low. I have a wide receiver 18 when you exclude, all of these are excluding the rookies still. I put rookies in my ranks after the NFL draft. Here are some trade ideas where you can acquire JSN. There's a real trade from the DLF Trade Finder. JSN for 205, 208, and Romeo Dubs. To me, that's a bunch of meh for JSN. I would easily take JSN there. Here's another one. This one was more of a hypothetical. JSN for George Pickens. I'll take JSN. I just think he has a lot more upside than Pickens, who for me is kind of a sell. And then JSN for Brian Robinson and 25 second. Brian Robinson is fine. 25-second is fine. But again, JSN is the blue chip asset potential here. Brian Robinson is never going to be worth that much. 25-second the same. So I would take JSN. Important to remember, he's still just 22 years old. He has the pedigree. And if he doesn't hit, he'll be one of the most accomplished single-season college wide receivers that was drafted in round 1 to not hit. So he would be an outlier if he failed, which is why I still think that he's going to succeed. Now, let's get into my next one. Next by Tyjae Spears. I think that people are just assuming that Tyjae Spears is going to be a clear backup to Tony Pollard in 2024. The market, that's what they say. I'm not sure I agree. Spears in 2023 will compare him to Pollard. Here's Spears. 100 carries, 453 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4.5 yards a carry. 52 catches, pretty impressive for a rookie. 385 yards and a touchdown. Pollard, 252 carries, didn't do much with it, just 1,005 yards, 4 yards a carry, 6 touchdowns, which is also pretty bad for that many carries, and 55 catches for 311 yards. Pollard was less efficient on his carries and receptions. He'll also be 27 years old, whereas Spears is more than 4 years younger. Yes, they signed Pollard, the Titans, in free agency, but it's not that big of a contract. It's just $10 million guaranteed. 3 years, $21.75 million. It's not a massive deal. It doesn't signal that Pollard will be a workhorse. Spears right now is running back 18 in KTC. I have him running back 15. Again, rookies are excluded. I do not understand why boring older veterans like DeAndre Swift, who's now on team 3, Javonte Williams, who looked abysmal last year, really slow and bad, and David Montgomery, who, while I like him, is already 27, the same age as Pollard. Why these players are ahead of Spears, I don't really understand that. We know what those players are. We know what they offer. Spears has far, far more upside. 52 catches as a rookie in the NFL. In any year, the NFL is pretty good. As a rookie is really good. We play a PPR game. So if he can just get a little bit more work, I think he has a lot of upside. Here are some trade ideas for Spears. Real trade. Spears for Romeo Doubs and Demario Douglas. These are roster clogger wide receivers. They're fine. They're great. Whatever. They're whatever players. But I would much rather have the upside of Tyjae Spears over these wide receivers who are not going to gain that much value. Spears for those older running backs, if you can go from Swift to Spears, Javonte to Spears, Montgomery to Spears. The ADP says you can get something on top of Spears for those. I'd take anything, but maybe a third, whatever you want. Get that extra value. And then lastly, Spears for a mid-late second. Again, maybe you can do this. Some trade analyzers have the pick ahead. I would go for Spears there. Like I said, I like what Spears showed in 2023 in his rookie year on a bad offense, sharing the backfield with Derrick Henry. Why can't he do more in 2024, sharing with Pollard, who is not nearly and has never been as good as Henry? There's something, food for thought there. I don't know. Next up, Jaylen Waddle. I think there's some fatigue with Waddle. Yes, he's probably never going to hit what we expected after his 2021 rookie season. And it's unfortunate that Tyreek Hill landed in Miami because Hill is one of those few uber elite alpha wide receivers. Essentially, they're so good, very few of these players, that it doesn't matter. Usually targets are earned. But when you have someone who's that good, they push down the targets of everyone else because they either earn so many targets like Devontae Adams in his prime, CeeDee Lamb, Justin Jefferson, Kupp in his prime, or by having so many long plays that they end drives early, taking the targets away from other players. That's Tyreek Hill. So, unfortunately, one of the 5 or 10 in the NFL came in and hurt his value. But let's look at Waddle's career. And you'll see, I think he's been a lot better than people give him credit for. 104 catches, 1,015 yards, 6 touchdowns on 140 targets as a rookie. 104 catches and 140 targets are, high-end rookie numbers. And then 2022, 75 catches, but up to 1,356 yards, 8 touchdowns on 117 targets. So essentially, he became a completely different player from 2021 to 2022. Many more short area targets in 2021. And then 2022, he just became a deep threat, which is interesting with Tyreek Hill on the roster. You wouldn't think that. And then 2023, it was kind of a little in the middle. He only played 14 games, dealt with some injuries. 72 catches for 1,014 yards, but just 4 touchdowns, 5.1 catches, and 72.4 yards a game. So kind of in the middle of his 2021 and 2022. He burnt fantasy managers, by leaving early in week 16, might have cost some people, might have left a sour taste in their mouth. Now, let's look at his KTC value. And this is something I caution. KTC says he's wide receiver 10. There's no way. He's not wide receiver 10 anywhere. I've never seen that. I've never seen him valued that highly. I have him at wide receiver 14. I think that's higher than what the market actually is. I don't buy the KTC wide receiver 10 value at all. Here are some trades that I think I'll show you. Waddle and 308 for Rachaad White. Waddle's worth a lot more than White, so I don't understand that one. Of course, Waddle for a late first. I always suggest trying to do this. I like the players in the late first, but I do think it's a tier down after 108 in Superflex, like everyone's been talking about. And then this is a bigger deal. Waddle and Zamir White for Chris Godwin, Jaden Reed, Jake Ferguson, and 25-second. Those pieces are all fine, but you have the one really good piece in Waddle. A lot of meh on the other side. I'd take the one really good piece in Jaylen Waddle. Now, I wanted to address something really quick. I haven't talked about it on here. I felt like this was a good spot to address Rashee Rice. Now, it's not that I think he's a buy or a sell particularly, but in general, we are talking about buys and sells. I caution against making any rash moves when a player has a legal situation hanging over them. In this particular case, I can't see how Rice gets out from this without any punishment. It's so public. He already admitted fault. So there's going to be some sort of punishment. However, in general, I've heard of the 205 for Rashee Rice. Yes, I would take Rashee Rice for the 205. If it's an extremely low cost, I'm willing to take the gamble on players like this. If I have existing shares, I'm usually holding on to them, not selling. Selling low on this type of bad news is rarely ever the right move, unless it's something so severe. I don't think this is going to be that. I mean, it is really bad in terms of real life. What he did was really bad, but I don't think that there's going to be a severe punishment from the NFL because there were no serious injuries in the accident. So, with that said, Rice will come back and play again in the NFL. We have to accept that. That's going to happen. And right on that moment, if you want to sell him, would be the time to get out. Right as he's about to come back. That's when his value will be the highest because people will be excited for him to come back. And that's when you get the value bump. Not right now. Now is the worst time to sell. So again, if you can buy new shares at a very low price, I would do it. Existing shares, probably holding. Now, once again, I want to thank everyone for watching the video. Of course, likes, comments, and subscribing to the channel are the best ways to support the channel. Additionally, I've been getting some more new patrons lately up there. Patreon.com/fantasyadvice. I only have one Patreon question today, so I'll get into that and then we'll get out of here. Who are some players you see yourself drafting in the second round of rookie Superflex mocks? It's always the same targets and avoids. I've been mentioning it on the channel in the past. I'm higher on Trey Benson, Ladd McConkey, and Roman Wilson, who I really like in that second round range. Players I don't love, Blake Corum. Definitely not going to have any Blake Corum. And then Troy Franklin, I think I'm a little lower than most on him. He's, near the bottom of a tier where I think other people have him near the top of that tier. And then Bo Nix and Michael Penix. I'm on the fence. It'll depend on draft capital. In general, I break it down this way. If you're drafted in the top 10, I think you're more likely to be successful than not, or at least provide some fantasy relevance for a couple of years than not. If you're outside the top 15, you're more likely to fail than succeed. Completely flop. 11 to 15 is kind of a 50-50 shot. So if Nix or Penix can get in that 11 to 15 range, I'll be more in. If they're more in the late 20s or in the second round, I'll probably be pretty out. But that's just my take on the second round of Superflex. Now, once again, I want to thank everyone for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to leave a like, a comment of what you thought about these buys or anything else I talked about. And of course, subscribe to the channel. As always, I thank all the patrons for asking all the advanced questions. We're going to do some Dynasty trade videos with the Patreon questions there as well. And you can find that link, like I said, at patreon.com/fantasyadvice. But once again, I want to thank everyone for watching, and I'll see you all later. Peace out.